back for part 2. Finish this up. I have no idea what happened. Sometimes my little whiteboard that I write on glitches out, so we're going to pick up where we left off. All right, check out the first video for the actual notes, and then for like the first half of the problems, the rest of them will be in this one. All right, so we're on number 5 here. What we were talking about, if I remember correctly, where I left off was the fact we've got 2 x's this time, right? So we can't get all the x's on one side and solve in the same way that we were, where it was just an x and then a number, right? Whereas this one we had an x's over here and then a number over here. All right, so what we're going to have to do is the same thing in that we get the x's on the same side, right? We talked about this from the last video. We're subtracting that 15x on both sides. But we can't combine them. They're not like terms, right? This guy is being squared. This guy is not. So we can't combine them. But once we get to here, what we can do is 2 things. First of all, notice we've got a greatest common factor here. We can take out a 3. Not only can we take out a 3, we can actually take out a 3 and an x. So we can take out a 3x. And what will that leave us with? So remember, if we're taking out a greatest common factor, we're going to divide each of these by what we just took out. So 3x squared divided by 3x just leaves us with 1x. And then 15x divided by 3x, that leaves us with 5. All right, now we can use zero product property on our factors. So we've got 3x equals 0, and we've got x minus 5 equals 0. So that gives us our 2 solutions. If 3x equals 0, then x must equal 0, right? Because the only number that I can multiply by 3 and get 0 is 0. And then over here, we can add 5 to both sides, and you will get x equals 5. All right, there are your 2 solutions on number 5. All right, so that leaves the remaining ones. So the problems that are left are we've got 6, we've got 7, we've got 9, and we have got 10. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the 2 that look maybe the trickiest, and I'm going to do those. And then the other 2 I will leave for you to do for practice. But if you have questions, ask me, and then I'm happy to send you over step-by-step solutions. I just don't want to give every single one in here because I do want you to try to practice some on your own. All right. I'm going to do number 7. Looks like there's a lot going on. I'll do number 7. How about that? So first thing we want to do is get all the stuff on the same side. The question is the left side or the right side? Well, if you remember, what we want is for this term, the guy that is being squared, we want that to be positive. And notice that if I tried to move everything over to the left and I had to subtract this on both sides, if I were to subtract 24x squared, this would make a negative, right? 4 minus 24 would make a negative. We don't want that. We want the x squared term to be positive. Now, it's not wrong, but it will make the factoring much harder if that leading term is negative. So instead, let's subtract the 4x squared on both sides. Combine like terms, so we're only subtracting right here. So you've got 20x squared minus 17x minus 5 equals negative 8. And remember, we want everything moved over, right? We want it to equal 0. So let's take care of this 8 as well. So we're going to add 8. We've got a plus 8 and a plus 8. So that gives us 20x squared minus 17x plus 3 equals 0. All right, so we've got everything on the same side. That was step number 1. Step number 2, we're going to factor. I'm actually going to bring this over here and factor because we're a little bit low on room. 20x squared minus 17x plus 3 equals 0. All right, let's see what we've got here. This is where, notice, right, that first term is no longer 1, so we've got a little bit more math we've got to do now. We've got to do the diamond. We've got to do that box. So first off, let's make our diamond. Remember, what goes up top is going to be B, is this guy right here, negative 17. What goes down in the bottom is A times C. 20 times 3 is 60. All right, so what we need to think about is what two numbers are going to multiply to 60 and add to negative 17. All right, so we want to find two numbers that multiply and give us 60, and they add and give us negative 17. All right, so we can think about the different things that multiply to 60, right? We could do 1 times 60. We could do 2 times 30, right? But what we need to be aware of is that we are multiplying to a positive, first of all. So that means we have two options. Either both of the numbers have got to be positive or both of the numbers have got to be negative, because that's the only way that we can multiply to a positive. All right, well, which is it, right? Is it positive, two positives or two negatives? This is your answer right there. It is two negatives, right? Because a positive plus a positive, that's still a positive. But a negative plus a negative stays negative. All right, so we are going to look for two negative numbers. Multiply to 60, add to 17. Think about what multiplies to 60. All right, here's your answer. Negative 5, negative 12, right? Those we're going to add up to a negative 17. Whoops. And they're going to multiply to 60. All right, so we've got our numbers. Okay, now it's time for the box to find those actual factors. All right, so we've got our box here. Top left, remember that is the first term. It is your 20x squared. Bottom right is C, so just our 3. And then those other two boxes, that's where those numbers that we just found come in, the 5 and the 12. All right, so we're going to use those, and we're going to have a negative 5x here, a negative 12x here. Remember, super important, it does not matter which one, right? I could have put the 12 up top, the 5 down at the bottom. The order of that does not matter. You're going to get the same answer either way, so don't stress about that. The one other thing we need to be aware of, as far as the factoring goes, this is the challenging case. It's the one that you've got to remember, that when you've got a plus here and a minus here, that both of these are going to be negative factors that are going to come out. So if C is positive but B is negative, you can write this down when doing the box method. I know we've talked about it last unit, but it's super important. When doing the box for factoring, if C is positive but B is negative, then both of the constant terms, which just means the numbers, the ones that don't have an x, will be negative. All right, so notice I go ahead and I put my negatives, I went ahead and I put my negatives in, just to remember. All right, so let's do it column by column, row by row. The largest number that goes into 20 and 12 is 4. From x squared and x, I can take out an x. Over here, not much to do. The biggest number that goes into 5 and 3 is just going to be a 1. But remember, that's a negative 1. And then we're going to look at our rows. Top row, biggest number that goes into 20 and negative 5 is going to be 5. And then x squared and x, we can bring out an x. And then down here in our bottom row, between 12 and 3, we can pull out a 3. But don't forget the negative. It's a negative 3. All right, we've got our factors. That's their box method for you. All right, so that tells us we've got factors of, can I bring this text box down a little bit? Is there a way for me to do that? Oh, I can. Beautiful. All right, so our factors, we've got the 4x minus 1 and the 5x minus 3. And remember, this whole thing is equal to 0, right? This whole thing is equal to 0, so don't forget it's equal to 0. And then we can solve. We can solve these, set these equal to 0 and solve them. So again, it's the same thing we've been doing, but we are solving each of the factors. All right, so this time we're going to add 1 to both sides. So add 1 is 4x equals 1. And then we are going to divide by 4. Bring this down just a little bit more. And divide by 4, so you get x equals 1 over 4 as one of our answers. Over here, add 3 to both sides. You'll get 5x equals 3. Divide by 5 on both sides, and you'll get x equals 3 over 5. And those are your two answers for this one. All right, that was all for number 7. That was number 7 right there. All right, so notice when we have to do the box method, it just takes a little longer. But the steps that take longer, it's the actual factoring. The solving is usually pretty quick. It's like a two-step algebra problem. Factoring is the tricky part. All right, what else should we do? How about, oh, I don't know. All the rest of these look about the same. I'll do number 9. And then 6 and 10, I'll leave for you to do on your own. I'll do number 9. All right, so the first thing I see here is that this guy is on the wrong side, right? We want everything to be on the same side. So let's take care of that. So let's subtract the 40x over here, subtract 40x over here. But notice there is nothing on the left for me to combine it with, right? I can't combine it with the squared, and I can't combine it with the numbers. So it's going to be on the left, but it's going to be its own term, right? There's nothing, we can't combine like terms. There are no like terms to combine. So we've got 4x squared minus 40x plus 64 equals 0. All right. Well, this can go one of two ways. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. I'm going to show you the easy way. All right. So what we want to do is notice, always be on the lookout for common factors we can take out. This one has a greatest common factor of 4, right? So what this lets us do is it's going to let us factor the easy way, right? Because when I divide the 4 on both sides, we're going to divide everything by 4 over here, everything over here. If I divide out that 4, it gives me a 1x squared, right? And now we can factor the easy way. And then minus 10x, and then 64 divided by 4 is 16. See, now we get to factor the easy way. All right, so that's why you always got to look for those greatest common factors. Okay, I'm going to bring that over here. I'm going to rewrite it because I'm out of room. X squared minus 10x plus 16 equals 0. All right, so we're going to factor, right? We want two things. They multiply to 16 and add to negative 10, right? They're multiplying to a positive, adding to a negative. The only way to do that is two negative numbers. And the negative numbers that will do that for us, right? Multiply here and add here is negative 2 and negative 8, right? Negative 2 times negative 8 is 16. Negative 2 plus negative 8, negative 10. All right, so we've got our factors. And then same thing we always do, we're going to set them each equal to 0. So we're going to make that guy equal to 0, add 2 to both sides, x equals 2. And then we're going to make that guy equal to 0, add 8 to both sides, and you will get x equals 8. All right, so those are your answers. Again, for the check, you would just plug it back into the original equation, the same thing we did on the first page. Check that out in video number 1 if you would like. I'm not making too big of a deal over the check. I want to focus on getting the actual math down first. Number 6 and number 10, go ahead, try those on your own. If you're really stuck, then ask me some questions, and I am happy to send you a step-by-step for those. All right, that's it for today. Good luck.